Welcome to WiseTake.com. This is CK013. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And yes, we are bringing you another NBA DFS podcast. It is Tuesday, March 21st, 2017. We've got 8 games going on tonight. I think that's still right in the bread and butter range. I really like those 6 to 8 game slates just because I feel like you have enough options. However, there's not too many options to where to where you can't make up your mind enough. So I think these are great slates for cash GPPs, both when it's anywhere from 6 to 8. Injury news is king, of course, as always. Now, I do want to give you guys a heads up. I am extremely sick. I got the bug. It's in my nose. It's in my chest. I can feel it moving from my chest to my nose. So forgive me if I sound a little off. And if I cough now and again. I did take some medicine, so hopefully I can keep that to a minimum. But I am extremely sick, but it's not going to stop me. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to do it for the team. I got the team on my back, though. But anyway, so tonight I didn't do so hot. I had a lot of Fareed. I had a lot of going on. I got, like I said, a good friend of mine, basically one of my brothers, is out here from Phoenix. So him and the girl. So we're trying to spend some time and do stuff. So I don't have the time that I normally would. I'm not setting the lineups that I normally would. And that's not an excuse because I'm doing limited lineups, enough for me to take care of. The bottom line is I put all my eggs on Fareed, and he really crapped the bed on me. Westbrook, too. This is like, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think one of the reasons I haven't done that, as well as I would have liked. I've done okay in basketball this season. Definitely in the green, but or the black, whatever you want to call it. But what I haven't done is I haven't really taken down any large GPPs. I've taken down smaller ones, but the larger ones, and I think a big reason that I haven't is because I don't play Westbrook a lot. And last night was the exact reason why I don't play Westbrook a lot. I did mention I had concerns about him getting kicked out. I didn't watch the game. I'm not really sure how. All I know is he just had a horrible game. I retweeted something that said he was excited for the game. It was a big game, all this stuff, and he just did not show up. Maybe because Durant wasn't playing, he wasn't as motivated. I would highly doubt that. Obviously, I'm kidding, but yeah, it was rough, and I had a lot of exposure to Westbrook. Now listen, I do play Westbrook in usually at least 1 or 2 lineups. Like if I was gonna make 5 or 6, I'd put him in at least 1. If I was gonna make 10, I'd put him in at least 2. And I never really have the right combination. And today I kind of thought like this is definitely a Westbrook slate. I can get Westbrook. I thought people would go after Harden because he was significantly slightly cheaper. What I didn't realize is their price difference was so minimal that I think people were like, oh, I'd rather just pay for Westbrook because he's only a few $100s more. And that's what happened. That's what a lot of people did, and Westbrook completely crapped the bed. I mean, I think he set a whole new floor for himself. I think he had 37-something DraftKings points. That's pretty bad. Harden was obviously the guy you needed to go with. Him and Jokic both had pretty good games, but Harden was the guy once again. The game was a lot closer than people anticipated, including myself. I saw the line, and I knew that they kept it close on the back end of a back-to-back in Denver. I figured they'd run away with it. I played a lot of Lou Williams, a guy that really only crushes in blowouts, and I anticipated a blowout. I played a lot of Westbrook. I played some Warriors, and I just figured that I did play Holmes. I had Holmes in almost every lineup. That was cool. I played some Vooch too when I found that he was playing. It really threw me off when Vooch played because most of my lineups had Bismack in it. I just kind of assumed with his Achilles issue and the fact that he struggled with it in the past, I assumed that Vooch wouldn't go, but he was playing his former team, and he always loves to stick it to Philly. I think he just knew it was a game that he would play well in. So he decided to play, and he looked good doing it. So it is what it is. I liked Kemba a lot. He crapped the bed. I liked Elf. He did okay, but he didn't exactly hit his upside. He did better than Westbrook. I'll give you that for half the price. But yeah, so I had a lot of Westbrook. And it's funny because I even stated on the podcast the night before, I said not to fade him, but I did say tread lightly, be careful, because there were so many different reasons that things could go wrong. And while what I said may have gone wrong, which is like ejections and things like that, that wasn't necessarily the case. He was having a bad game regardless. Still, he ended up being props to the Siege over at Roto Grinders. I listened to people all day rag on him and say, oh, he said to fade Westbrook, he's crazy and all these other things. Definitely take some stones to tell people to fade Westbrook. Even I wasn't crazy about Westbrook at first, and I ended up talking myself into it throughout the day. And give him props for sticking with his guns. I mean, it kills me because I'm somebody that tries to get away with fading Westbrook a lot, and I'm going to admit that. And I think a lot of people would tell me you're crazy. Obviously, Westbrook is on, I think, over 50%, probably close to 60% of all winning GPP lineups, and and I've had a lot of slates where I've had very minimal exposure to him. And this was a situation where I really liked him. I hopped on board. I thought I learned my lesson. I'm not going to fade Westbrook in these kind of spots. The line was trending in my favor. It looked like the big money was back in Oklahoma City, and these are all the things that go into consideration for me. And it just seemed like a great spot for Westbrook, and it just wasn't. I mean, that was bad. That was really bad. His team got crushed. He didn't even break 40 DraftKings points. That's a whole new floor for Russell Westbrook. So I'm a little upset about that. I did have one lineup that did okay. That was one of the lineups where I faded Westbrook, and I still got screwed by Fareed, but it ended up cashing about $20 on a $9 entries. It was okay. Yeah, it was rough. It was some difficult decisions, and I thought I was on the right end. I had that one lineup that's cashing for me right now. It's the only lineup I had with Harden over Westbrook in it. So, and Fareed still screwed that one up, but still, it was pretty good. It did pretty good. That's what I get, and that's what happens. That's why I go light when I know that I can't be on my computer from 6 to 7, assuming 7 o'clock Eastern time is locked. If I can't be on the computer from 6 to 7, I'm going to scale back, or I won't play at all. And it's just because, and this is a situation where the injuries weren't there, but that last hour is kind of when you really do your thinking, and things kind of, you're alert. You're waiting for new information, and even if you don't get the new information, like we didn't really get much last night in the final hour, I go back and I look at the stats, and I reevaluate some of the decisions I'm making, and I reevaluate some of the stats, and I make my pivots and whatnot. And sometimes tinkering could be a little, sometimes tinkering too much can screw you up. But I prefer to have that last hour to really make up my mind. If I set a lineup and I change that lineup and I change it again, but this time I change it back to the original lineup, then obviously I really like that original lineup. If I change it 3 or 4 times, I feel like that's just me being indecisive, and so I need to really buckle down and decide who I really want. So anyway, enough rambling about that. Yeah, it was a rough day. I definitely didn't win today. I didn't lose too bad, but I didn't win, that's for sure. And I like to win. So we're going to try to attack this. This is a complicated slate. It's not as easy. I know it's 8 games, and I just said that's in my wheelhouse, but it gets complicated this time of year. It really does, with rest and everything else. And we've got 8 games, and all of them have stipulations. We got a few back-to-back, so it's not so easy. Anyway, starting off with some of the injury news, we've got Dwayne Wade is out with an elbow. Devin Booker is questionable with an ankle. Leandro Barbosa questionable with an illness. Ronnie Price questionable with a leg. Deion Waiters is expected to miss again. Jeremy Lin is questionable with an ankle. Sean Kilpatrick questionable with a hamstring. Chandler Parsons out for the season. DeJounte Murray is expected to be out with a groin. Belicia is obviously out for the season from Minnesota. Giannis is questionable with an ankle. Apparently got hurt in his last game. And Nick Young is questionable with an illness against the Clippers. So... Excuse me. Anyway, starting off a point guard as we always do, we got Giannis, who's small forward eligible. If Giannis does play, he's 9,400 and he's got a great matchup against Portland. They do have Evan Turner back, but still Giannis is physically a beast, and he's hard to control. So typically I like to play Giannis in situations where they can't protect the rim. And Nurkic, I'm still on the fence. Like, he has some games where he does well and some games where he really gets into foul trouble and struggles. Either way, Giannis is definitely worth considering. He's actually the highest priced stud on the slate. So this slate is going to be interesting. We don't have Westbrook, Harden. We don't have Jokic. We don't have any of these double-figure guys, not even LeBron or any of those guys. At 9.4 on DraftKings, Giannis is the most expensive player. Just under him, we have Steph Curry at 92. Great matchup against Dallas. I think Steph is going to go nuts. The issue is I'm a little concerned with Dallas's ability to keep up. Now, it is the back end of a back-to-back, and this game obviously has a lot less hype than Golden State had yesterday against the Thunder. So there is a chance that Dallas could come out and surprise you. And so because of that, I would recommend playing either Steph Curry or Clay, or maybe both, with a correlation play, maybe like a Harrison Barnes, who we'll talk about later, because it could be surprising. They could surprise you and keep it a little closer than you might be thinking. I'm not saying that I would put that in cash because, I honestly do think there's a pretty good chance it'll be a blowout. But I do see a way for it not to be, and therefore I wouldn't want to fade completely. Damian Lillard against Milwaukee is 8,800, coming off a 60 burger. He's been playing phenomenal lately after struggling a little bit, and I'm going to be off of him. I get if you want to play him. He's been red hot, and I'm a little on the fence with his popularity. I don't like targeting point guards against Milwaukee to begin with. In certain point guards, sure. Dame, I'm not so sold on. I felt like maybe he would be popular because he's been playing so well, and he just put up a 60 burger, and there's not really too many star point guards to pay up for today. But then again, people might come and they might see this red 2 under opponent rank, and they might decide not to play him. So get a feel for it. If you think he's going to be contrarian, then it's definitely worth it at 88. And if you think he's going to be super popular, I think there's enough point guards on the slate that you could fade it. Chris Paul, 8,400 against the Lakers. Assuming he plays, they're currently playing the Knicks right now. Shouldn't be too much of a competition. I think last time I checked, it was a 10-point game. But Chris Paul, 8,400, still a great price. Love targeting point guards against the Lakers. I have all season. Chris Paul has been super inconsistent, so I don't know if you could trust him in cash. And there is some serious concern about a blowout here. The Lakers did play Cleveland pretty tough, so I think people would expect them to play the Clippers tough. I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case. I think the Lakers got a little lucky. Maybe they were playing with some extra oomph because they're playing against LeBron. A bunch of young guys. They probably look up to him, so I wouldn't put too much weight into that. The Lakers are a bad team right now, and they're trying their best to lose. They need to lose. If they do not lose enough, they lose their draft pick. You understand? So, it's 8,400 is a great price, a great matchup. I'm a little concerned here about the blowout as well. Goran Dragic, 8,100. He kind of disappointed a lot of people the other day. He didn't play bad. I mean, he got 32 DraftKings points. He was 1 for 7 from three-point land. That's 14.3%. He was 6 for 22. That's 27.3% shooting. He played 38 minutes without Deion Waiters, and all he could come up was 32 DraftKings points. So I think people are going to be upset. He was 7,600 that day against Portland, which appeared to be a great matchup. Now he's playing Phoenix, which is another great matchup. However, his price went up to 8,100. So there, of course, is some concern about Miami being a better team than Phoenix, and Phoenix is pretty thin, especially if Booker doesn't play. But at 8,100, we know Waiters is supposed to be out. Assuming Waiters is out, for sure, I think Dragic is a great solid play at 8,100, and I think I'd rather play him over Chris Paul, over Damian Lillard, to be honest with you. I think it's a great matchup. He's got a matchup with Ulis. I don't see Dragic having too much of a hard time against Ulis. Mike Conley, 7,600 against New Orleans. Conley's been playing pretty well. That's what, 3 out of the last 4 straight games above 40 DraftKings points. And one of those 4 games, he went over 50. So he's been playing well, and I know a lot of people don't like to target guys against Holiday. However, a couple things here. Number one, it's been tough to get – they've been a pretty good defensive team down low especially, so it might be tough for their bigger guys to get going. Now, they could get going, of course. Gasol is a beast, so I'm not telling you to fade Gasol. All I'm saying is if they're going to keep this game close, Mike Conley's going to have to play well. And believe it or not, if you look at over the last week, New Orleans is up there as far as DVP, as far as allowing points to fantasy points to point guards. Conley's been playing well, and Holiday's defense hasn't been so great. It's been a little overrated. So I think Conley is certainly in play at 76. Ricky Rubio at 73. The Spurs have been giving up a lot of fantasy points to point guards, and Rubio has been crushing as it is. Now, his last couple games, he's kind of come back down to earth a little bit. Keep in mind he was on a 3-game road trip. They're returning home now. I don't think that road trip was long enough that I'm worried about the dud when they come home, but it's, of course, it's possible. But I am not worried about the defense of San Antonio as far as the point guards go. As a matter of fact, I think one of the only places you can really comfortably target them is at the 1 and 2 guards. So, obviously, there's not really a dominant 2 guard for Minnesota, maybe a Shabazz Muhammad potentially. But I think Rubio at 73 is very, very intriguing, and I don't think he'll be very popular either. Tyler Ulis, 7,300. I know he's playing mega minutes. He's been playing extremely well, but at 7,300, I don't think he's no longer a must play. The matchup is tough. Again, he is going to get the minutes. And if Booker is out, he's going to get minutes, and they're going to keep him in there. But keep in mind, Barbosa is still questionable, so there's a chance that if Barbosa plays or one of their other guards plays, they may not need him to play the 40 minutes. He may only see, I'm sure he'll see at least 33, 34. But just keep that in mind. Either way, 7,300 is very expensive. Even at 65, I thought that was fine against Detroit. I played him a lot. And he's coming off a game where he shot 29.2%, 0 for 5 from three-point line, 7 for 24 from the field overall. So he's running that offense, and they're giving him run, and I think he's pretty blowout-proof. So I definitely think he's in play. I just don't think he's a lock-and-load must-play, especially not against Dragic. Of course, there could be a scenario, maybe Miami gets ahead, they pull Dragic, and then Ulis gets to go nuts because we've seen even in blowouts, they just want to see what this kid has. So I understand it. McCollum at 71. I'd rather play him at shooting guard if I'm going to play him, but I'm not too crazy about him. He has been playing well. Nothing against him, but he's certainly in play at 71, but he doesn't really do anything for me, naturally. Drew Holiday, 6,600. I know a lot of people have been trying to target point guards against Memphis, against Conley. But Holiday's been a little funky. Even in the game without Boogie, he didn't exactly show the upside I was hoping for. Against Minnesota, he did well, 38.25 DraftKings points, and he's all the way down to 6'6", so his number fell. But it's a slow-paced game. Both of these teams, believe it or not, New Orleans, ever since they got Boogie, they have slowed their pace down a little bit. So I'm not crazy about targeting too many people in this game, that's for sure. And, with Boogie and Anthony Davis playing, it's kind of hard to really play Holiday with those guys both in. Jordan Clarkson's been getting run. The Clippers have been struggling against point guards, and Clarkson's been getting a ridiculous amount of minutes. So at 6,400, again, I would prefer to play him at shooting guard because the position is typically uglier. But I definitely would consider Clarkson even in a tough matchup against Chris Paul just because of the fact that they're forcing him down everybody's throat. If Nick Young is out, you can certainly look to D'Angelo Russell. 58.5 DraftKings points at 5-5 against Cleveland. They put him at the 2, and Cleveland really struggles against 2. They put a point guard at the 2 against a team that struggles against 2. So that explains why he did so well. Obviously, I didn't get a chance to play him last time because Nick Young was announced out way too late. So I didn't think he'd be getting that minutes. He played 41 minutes. 21, 25, 28 is what he has been playing. He played 41 minutes with Nick Young out. So not too crazy. I think he'll be a little overused here, especially if Nick Young is out. That's the only way you can consider playing him if Nick Young was out. And even if he's out, I think too many people are going to be on that train, to be honest. I'd rather play Clarkson, to be honest. Reggie Jackson certainly played 5,700. I like Rondo. His price came back down. He only played 21 minutes against Utah. I thought that was a little strange. Only had 2 fouls. He did struggle a little bit. 4 assists. He had a really rough game. Before that, he was playing well, and now he's priced back to 5,700 against Toronto. Now, Corey Joseph is decent. As a matter of fact, I like Corey Joseph. We'll talk about him next, but I think Rondo is certainly in play against Toronto. It's 2 slower-paced teams in the league, so I'm not going to go nuts trying to find these guys, but I think that if Chicago wants to win, which I'm sure they do, they're playing a team that's also going to the playoffs. Rondo's going to have to get some run, whether they like it or not. So I do like Rondo at 5,700. Tyler Johnson certainly in play at 56. Now, Reggie Jackson, 5,700. He's certainly in play. Jeremy Lin is questionable. Whether Lin plays or not, Brooklyn is still bad against point guards. Problem with Reggie Jackson, even though he's cheap and in a great matchup, is he has not been playing the minutes. 20, 20, 28, 25 his last 4 games. That's a big problem. They've really been giving Ish some run. And so because of that, I think you can actually consider Ish if you really want to get contrarian, if you really want to take a chance, because Ish has been seeing the same amount of minutes. Now, I will say Reggie has been slightly outperforming him fantasy-wise. Corey Joseph is 5K. Great matchup against Chicago, whether it's Rondo or anybody else. Corey Joseph has been playing better in the absence of Lowry, and he's been getting a lot of assists, and he gets some rebounds. He gets some extra peripherals. So even though he doesn't shoot as much as you might like, and he doesn't take as many threes as you might like, he does stay active, and he has the ball in his hands a lot. So especially he's been taking some of the pressure off DeRozan, who seems just exhausted. So I do like Corey Joseph at 5K against the Bulls as a value point guard. Brogdon certainly interesting. Yogi Ferrell at 4-4 is interesting. Now Barea's back, so we've seen Yogi take a dive in minutes. So I'm not crazy about Yogi, to be honest. Barea, 27 minutes against Brooklyn, 35.25 DraftKings points. I think if you want to play a point guard from this game, he might be the guy you have to take. He's only $200 cheaper than Yogi, but it seems like now that he's healthy, he might get the run. Tim Frazier is somebody worth mentioning. He's 4K. He got the start at shooting guard the other day. He only played 23 minutes, and he didn't do that well. But against Houston, he did do pretty well. So I guess, am I crazy about targeting guys against Memphis? No. But at 4K, he's considerable, I guess. Dinwiddie played a lot of minutes. He's shooting guard eligible. Obviously, when Lin went down, he was the guy that got the rest of the run. So that's 30 minutes against Dallas. But honestly, against Boston, he got 29. He didn't play great, but he still got 29. 33 DraftKings points against Dallas. He had a pretty good game. He's 3,800 on DraftKings. A matchup against Detroit, who has struggled against point guards, of course. And he's a guy you only want to look to if Lin is out. But again, another shooting guard eligible person that you could play at the 2 guard if you want to save some money. But it's definitely worth considering. I don't know if you have to go there because there's not too many studs, but still, the more of these higher price guys you could fit, the better you're probably looking today. Because I think most people are obviously going to go balanced because that seems to be what the slate's giving you. So I think if you can, to be contrarian, if you want to try to go as stars and scrubsy as possible, I do think it is possible. And it could even, the chances could even improve once we get more, injury news or whatever the case is. Austin Rivers also 3,800 worth mentioning. That's all. Moving on to shooting guard. We've got Jimmy Butler, 8,900, small forward eligible. We know what his usage is without Wade. He's 2 games in a row, 47 DraftKings points or higher. His minutes have been up there. They're still trying to win games. And even if he has some DeRozan defense or DeMarre Carroll defense, I'm not worried. I think Butler's a great stud to pay up for, 8,900. He probably will be popular. I don't know for sure. I'm just assuming he will because he's obviously by far the best-looking option on paper, at least at shooting guard. And at small forward, he's got a little bit more, so I think people will play him at shooting guard more. But still, 8,900 is a pretty good price for a guy with his usage and his skill set. DeMar DeRozan, 77. I love the price. Again, a slower pace matchup, and DeRozan really hasn't shown us much upside. And I think he's worn. And even against Indiana, he played 29 minutes. The game was a complete blowout, so I guess there was no reason. But yeah, he's not a lock like he used to be, and it's a little scary. They got Ibaka, they got Corey Joseph. These guys are trying to take some of that usage away to relieve him. He just looks beat. But at 7,700, if you want to take a shot, I'm not mad at you. The price is right. Booker against Miami. I'd love to play Booker if he plays. The question is, he's been really stinking it up these last couple games, and now we find out he's been playing hurt. So I think that makes a lot more sense. But he did play against Miami earlier this season. He played decent. So at 7K, if he plays, I think I'd rather go there in a tournament. I wouldn't put him in cash because of the injury thing, but in tournament, sure. Klay Thompson at 7K, he gets the usage. I'm not sure how he did today in that Golden State Thunder game, but we know that Klay is good. We know without Durant, Klay gets the usage. He's 7K, and they can kind of beat up on Dallas. So, again, you do have to be concerned about the blowout, but Klay is certainly in play either way. We talked about Clarkson and some of these other guys. Seth Curry, 5,200. He's playing against his brother. Great tournament play. His numbers have been down. His minutes a little inconsistent, but he can get 30 minutes. He's playing against his brother. He might want to show off. So I definitely think Seth is interesting at 5,200, even though the team is a little healthier now and his minutes have seemed to have been cut. They may decide to give him some run either way. Josh Richardson, 4,800. He's played 32 minutes against Minnesota, 33 against Portland. So he's been the guy they've been relying on without waiters. And earlier in the season, we saw him do a lot with that usage. However, lately he hasn't been showing that. However, at 4,800, if he's still going to get those minutes, I will continue to take a chance, especially against a bad defense in Phoenix. So at 4,800, I do like Josh Richardson quite a bit, even though he hasn't really shown us the upside. Shabazz Muhammad's price has come up. He's 4,500 against San Antonio. Depending on where he plays, if he's going to play the 2, I certainly think he's in play. And we know what his upside could be even in 24, 28 minutes. But his price is up. I mean, he was 3,700 when he got 18 DraftKings points. He was 4K when he got 31 against New Orleans. He's 45 now. So now you're looking at him. He needs to get over 20 DraftKings points for you to not feel sick about it. And he's shown us that there are situations where he can fail to hit 20. We've seen some pretty low floors for him this season. But without Belicia or whatever his name is, that means Shabazz is going to be worked back into the rotation, so I certainly see the merit. And if he's playing the 2, San Antonio struggled against 2 guards all season. Denzel Valentine, another guy that's been getting a decent amount of run, and he's been pretty solid. And at his price, I think I do like him. It's a pace-down spot, but 28 minutes, 31, 28, 28. The minutes have been there. 21, 27, 20, and 37. Those are his DraftKings points over the last 4 games. And he's only 4,500, so I definitely think he's in play. With Wade out, he's another guy that's been getting some decent run. And I watched him in Michigan State. The guy's good. Redick, 4,500, certainly an option. Tony Allen, 41, a guy I like to go to, and I'm looking for value, and it's not there. Even Evan Turner's eligible at shooting guard. Although, keep in mind, he just got back from injury, so you want to be a little careful there. Of course, you got Norman Powell, but his minutes have significantly dipped over these last couple of games, so I wouldn't really go there. Moving on to small forward, Kawhi Leonard's obviously the guy. I'm sorry. I said Giannis was the most expensive player on the slate. That was inaccurate. He was the most expensive point guard eligible player on the slate. The most expensive guy on the slate is Anthony Davis at 10K. But even so, he's the only one in the double digits, and everybody else is under 10. So it's still a slate where there's not too many ridiculous stars that you have to pay for. So I think people will kind of just forget about value and kind of build a middle lineup. I really do. That's what I think people are going to do. I could be wrong, though. Anyway, Kawhi Leonard, 9,800. Kawhi is Kawhi. He's phenomenal. He's great. He hasn't really shown us the upside over the last 2 games, but he's Kawhi Leonard. We know how good he is. He doesn't need to prove that to us anymore. The matchup might be a little bit tougher against Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins is a pretty solid defender, and Thibodeau in general is a defensive-minded guy. So I'm not sure I feel comfortable playing 98 for Kawhi. Not when you got like Jimmy Butler at 89 and some of these other guys, even Harrison Barnes, who are cheaper. But yeah, it's kind of ugly. We got Giannis. I'd rather play Giannis over Kawhi, I think. I think the defensive matchup is there. But again, it could be a contrarian option to go with Kawhi. I don't think too many people are going to want Kawhi, to be honest. We talked about Jimmy Butler. TJ Warren is 72. The only way I'm considering Booker at 72 is if Warren at 72 is if Booker is out. If Booker is playing, I don't think I want Warren at 72. I think it's just too expensive. At this point, you need him to get 35 DraftKings points. And even though he's done well over those last 3 games, I don't think he's a lock for that. So, in tournament, sure, you want to take a shot. He's a power forward eligible, so you could certainly play him there too. But I'm not dying to play him unless, if Booker is out, I will certainly look to him because I know he picks up a lot of slack without Booker. Andrew Wiggins, 6,400. He's power forward eligible, and now he's been consistent enough for cash games. You know he's going to get the minutes, and his last 3 games he's broken 30 DraftKings points, so it's not great. His price has been to a point where it's not really cutting it. But against Kawhi Leonard, certainly a contrarian option. He's 6,400. His price did come down, and you know he's going to get those minutes for sure. Harrison Barnes got a matchup with Golden State. He's at home, and Golden State's on the back end of a back-to-back coming off an emotional game. Barnes has played 2 games against Golden State this season, and he's averaging 37.1 DraftKings points against them. If he gets you 37.1 on a $6,300 salary, I think you're okay with that. I think you're pretty happy with that. So I love playing Barnes against his old team. He feels like he kind of got kicked to the curb in efforts to sign Durant, which he did, and he's out to prove that he's good. Chris Middleton, if Giannis is out, I think you have to look at Middleton, although there is some concern they might stick Evan Turner on him. But still, Middleton's a guy that could shoot. He likes to put up the points, and he's been playing pretty well. Against Golden State, he didn't do so hot, but his team pretty much got trashed. But we've seen some of the upside. He's 6,300, so his price did come up a little bit. Actually, no, his price went down, actually. Yeah, his price went down a couple times. So Portland's a fast-paced team, not known for their defense, although keep in mind they do have Evan Turner back, who was probably their best defender as far as the wings go. But still, he's worth considering for sure. Tobias Harris at 6K. He's been playing pretty well. He's got a matchup with Brooklyn. Actually, no, he's been struggling lately. I'm sorry. He did play well for a while. After he had that big game against the Knicks with 49 DraftKings points, he's kind of struggled lately. So, but his minutes have been there, and he's got a great matchup against Brooklyn. So I think he's worth considering. Marcus Morris, same thing. He showed us immense upside this season. He's been struggling lately, but he has shown us the capability of putting up monster scores. So in tournaments against Brooklyn, I think you got to consider him. Brandon Ingram against the Clippers, he might see some Mamute defense. He's been playing a lot better, and his minutes have been through the roof. So I think he's worth considering, but at 5K, I don't think it's anything too special there. And I think we talked about some of these guys. Solomon Hill, man, I never, ever would have thought that guy would have put up that against Houston, 54 DraftKings points. I mean, 30 actual points, it just seems ridiculous. I understand there's variance in sports, and that's part of the reason that makes it interesting, but that's just, where did that come from? I know Boogie wasn't there, but where did that come from? That was just insane for this kind of caliber person. I mean, 30 points, really? Like, why did he even take that many shots? The dude never takes that many shots. I mean, 11 shots against Charlotte, still only got 16 actual points. All of a sudden now, he takes 13 shots, makes 8 of them, gets 6 rebounds, 7 assists. You know, he just went nuts. He really did. So, anyway, I'm not playing him against Memphis. I don't care. I think that was kind of a fluky thing. He's not somebody that I'm going to rely on. Wayne Ellington, 4,200. I'm not really on him because he's been inconsistent, and even with it looks like I said, Richardson's the guy they seem to want to go with, so I'm not crazy about him there. Yeah, Vince Carter, 3,800, I guess, but I'm not dying to go there either, to be honest. Moving on to power forward, we've got Anthony Davis, Karl Anthony Towns, and Boogie. Davis and Boogie have slower pace matchups. It's tough, but if you want to be contrarian, I think they will be under-owned. Karl Anthony Towns is getting a discount against the Spurs, and I understand why, but this is still a guy with major upside. If you think Rubio is going to do well, he's going to do well with the pick and roll with Karl Anthony Towns. So I think if you're going to play Rubio, you might as well throw in Cat. He's 9,700. You're getting a discount. It's cheaper than Kawhi Leonard. So I definitely think he's obviously, you could play him at center or power forward. So I do like Cat a lot. We saw what Jokic did to the Spurs, so we know they can be beaten down low. It's just a matter of what caliber. Now Towns is not Jokic. He's not a big, he's not a guy that's going to deal it. Towns is going to try to score, but we know how good he is, so he certainly has to be considered. Blake against the Lakers. It's a crush spot. You just have to be concerned about the blowout. But if you think this game's going to stay somewhat close, at least for most of the game, I don't see how he doesn't smash. Draymond, 7,800, worth playing, but he is on the back end of a back-to-back. We know what his upside is, so he's worth considering, but it's a pace-down spot. We talked about T.J. Warren. Julius Randle at 68. He has a matchup with Blake. Blake's actually not a guy I like to target people against as far as power forwards, but 6,800, he did get a price decrease, so I get it. LMA at 6,700. He's been playing well against Sacramento. He played 22 minutes, still got 33 DraftKings points. So he's somebody you can certainly look to, but keep in mind it's a slower pace game in general, and it's two teams that actually do play defense. James Johnson had a great day the other day. I think he's going to be somewhat chalky at 6,300 at power forward. But a guy like him is not somebody that I feel comfortable playing when they're chalk. Just because, one, he comes off the bench, so you never know what'll happen. His minutes are inconsistent, and he's not somebody that's shown you very much consistency this year. I know his usage is going to be up with Waiters out, but I'd rather play Dragic, to be honest with you. You got Ibaka's in play. Marquise Chris is an option. I don't like targeting power forwards against Miami, for whatever reason, they've done pretty well against it this year. And James Johnson's actually a pretty good defender. I shouldn't take anything away from him. Mirotic at 46 is interesting for tournaments. He only played 17 minutes against Utah. I think that was a matchup thing, though. But before that, he has been getting decent runs, so he's certainly worth considering. Even Bobby Portis at 3,900, I'm not crazy about the matchup, and his minutes have been inconsistent, but we did see him play 31 minutes against Utah, and at 3,900, it's not going to take much to pay off his salary. So, again, that's a matchup thing. I'd probably rather play Mirotic in this matchup particularly, because they may need some scoring, but yeah, I don't know. Anyway, finally moving on to centers. We talked about Towns, Anthony Davis, and Boogie. Whiteside seems to be a great play against Phoenix. They're pretty bad against centers. 8,500 though, you're going to pay for it. Drummond's in a great spot against Brooklyn. Again, you have to wonder about the blowout. Now, keep in mind, Brook Lopez takes a lot of outside shots, so that could, even though Brooklyn's a bad rebounding team, that could pull Drummond away a little bit from the hoop. That's something to consider. But still, he's in a great spot. Marcus Gasol, 75. They're going to need him on the court, that's for sure. So even though the matchup's not great, he's cheaper than the other two guys, big men in this game against him. And they're going to need him on the court to contend with those two. DeAndre Jordan, great spot against the Lakers, but it is the back end of a back-to-back. You guys know I'm not crazy about playing big men on the back end of a back-to-back. I may make an exception for Jordan just because the matchup is too good. But yeah, anyway, Nurkic against Milwaukee, a phenomenal spot for Nurkic. He's been playing extremely well. Got 29 minutes against Miami, still put up 43.5. He's 6,900, but I think he's worth every penny against Milwaukee, a team that still struggles against centers. What you have to worry about is a little bit of foul trouble. Sometimes he gets a little over-aggressive and he gets himself in foul trouble. And while Milwaukee's not intimidating with their bigs, a guy like Monroe could put up points, and he's somebody that could potentially draw him in foul trouble. Either way, I still like him at 6,900. Even Brook Lopez, 65, certainly an interesting play. His price continues to just not go up, and he's very rarely above 7K. When he's chalk, watch out, but he's very rarely chalk, and as long as he's not chalk, he's typically a pretty solid play, considering his peripherals aren't always so great. He just scores a lot. He's got a massive usage rate. So certainly like Brolo, even against Drummond. You got Dirk, certainly an option at 6,200. You can play him at power forward too. Allen Williams is worth considering. I think they're going to need him. I don't think they're going to want Len against Whiteside. They're going to want somebody big and physical like Allen. His minutes have been inconsistent, but we know what his upside is. So he's certainly in play. 5,900. Whiteside is not a very good defender, at least not this. He hasn't been anyway. So I definitely think there's merit to playing him. Greg Monroe is interesting at 5.5, but I think I like the other side of that better. Even Zubac is worth considering. Now, I know Zubac burned a lot of people a couple days ago, even against Cleveland, but I think it was a matchup thing. Cleveland's pretty good against centers, but when he gets run, he does pretty well. Got 29 minutes against Milwaukee, got 29.5 DraftKings points. He's 5,300. It's not going to hurt you, and we know he's got that 40-point upside. We haven't seen it since he did it against Denver, but we know he has the upside, and we know they typically want to play this guy. So I think against the Clippers they could, but he's not exactly my first center on the list by any means. Nerlens Noel, 4,900. His minutes just aren't really there to make you love him, but he's certainly in play. And yeah, I think that's gonna pretty much do it. So we didn't talk about too much value because I don't think there's so much obvious value. And to be honest, if you can find the value, I think that could help you out because I find in situations like this, people are going to try to go as balanced as possible simply because, number one, nobody wants to look for value if they don't have to. There's a reason those guys are priced cheap. It's because they're bad, or at least they're playing bad recently, or their matchup is bad, or whatever. So if you can find the value, if you can find a couple guys that are underpriced, and you can turn this into a stars and scrubs, I think that's an interesting lineup construction to be contrarian. Could be wrong. Maybe everybody's going to try to do that. But I feel like on this kind of slate with no Westbrook, no Harden, no Jokic, none of these, no LeBron, I think people are just going to say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to go balanced and try to build a balanced lineup. So, in cash games, that's certainly the way to go. But I think in GPPs, if you want to get different, try to find some value, guys. See how that goes. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for us here at WiseTake.com. If you're not a member of WiseTake.com, please sign up. We're getting things going still, but we do have some free tools you get access to, free raw projections. They're very raw. DVP charts, all that good stuff. We have a forum. We're going to try to get it going. I got some WiseTake hats that I want to give out to you guys. I'm going to run some contests between there and Twitter within the next few weeks. So keep on the lookout for that. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like button. We really, really appreciate it. It means a lot to us, and it definitely gives me motivation to keep this thing going. If you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube, I don't know what you're waiting for. Please subscribe. We're trying to get it going. We got some good growth. We broke 100 up to 107, and we're trying to get that thing going. Definitely trying to make something big here with your guys' help. For you guys, by you guys. That's what we're all about. If you're listening on Podbean, give us a follow, leave us some reviews. If you're listening on iTunes, please leave us a review. Preferably a good one, but honestly, if it's a bad review, I'd rather hear the review and see a review than not. So if it's bad, that's fine. I can handle criticism. I say it to you guys all the time. I'm trying to make this show catered to you guys. So I need to know if I'm doing something you guys don't like. I need to know if I'm doing something that's counterproductive to you guys learning and to you guys getting your brains going. I'm here to get you guys thinking about things, pointing out certain things, trying my best to use my basketball knowledge to help you out. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for us. And good luck. It's an 8-game slate. Should be a lot of fun. Should be interesting. It's going to be crucial. We have some interesting injury news. It's going to be crucial to be by your computer or whatever on Twitter by lock to make those last-minute adjustments. Anyway, guys, as always, good luck.
Yeah.